welcome everyone. A very big thank you to all of our speakers that have volunteered their time to share their company's interests and certainly answer any questions that you may have. If this is your first Connect and Collaborate, welcome. If this is not your first, welcome back. We're very glad to have the opportunity to be able to hold this event again. And I think the next time that you'll see something of this like will most likely be at the annual meeting, which is going to be held in person in February in New Orleans. So if you have not registered or booked your hotel room, make sure you do so very quickly. Other than that, we've got a great assortment. We have 7 people representing 6 companies. We will hopefully, if there is time for a Q&A in between speakers, we'll make room for that, but rest assured that we will have a breakout session where you'll be able to interact with in a slightly smaller group as well. And then we will, after this event, have the slide decks posted on the Connect and Collaborate site, so you'll be able to refer to it at your leisure, so you do not need to frantically take notes while the presenters are speaking. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to open up with AstraZeneca, represented by Katie and Lee.
Hello, everyone. Thanks to AUTM to provide us with such good opportunities to meet our old friends and no new friends today. I'm Lee Wang, work as the head of academic alliances at AstraZeneca. Within AstraZeneca, we have 2 major R&D. One is the oncology R&D, another one is the biopharmaceuticals R&D. Our BD group is also divided by 2 groups. So my team is fully responsible to lead biopharmaceutical R&D's collaboration deals with global academic partners. I'm based in Gothenburg, Sweden, one of the AstraZeneca biggest R&D center. My colleague, Dr. Katie Montague, is also joining today's event. And she is the head of our oncology academic alliances. Now I will pass to Katie to talk about AstraZeneca R&D externalization strategy and the business development organizations.
Thank you. Thank you, Lee, and thank you to AUTM for the opportunity to present. So I'm sure we collaborate with a number of you already, but you know, if we could go to the next slide, actually. Yes, I'm sure we collaborate with a number of you already, but for those who don't know, AstraZeneca is a science-driven global pharmaceutical company, and we're focused on creating innovative medicines in our key therapy areas. So we are a large multinational company. We have about 80,000 employees worldwide, and our total revenue in 2020 was $26.6 billion, which was up 10% on the previous year. So as Lee already mentioned, our research activities are broadly split into 2 R&D organizations, oncology R&D, obviously focusing on cancer, and biopharmaceuticals R&D, focusing on cardiovascular, renal, metabolism, respiratory and immunology, and opportunistically neuroscience and microbial science. And I'll go through that in a bit more detail later. So each of these R&D organizations cover the whole process from target identification through to drug launch. And we also actually recently acquired a company, Alexion, and that provides a new focus for us as well on rare diseases. Okay, so if we go to the next slide. So we have 3 strategic R&D centres worldwide, Cambridge, UK, which is where I'm based and which is also our global headquarters. We have a site at Gaithersburg, Maryland, so in the Greater Washington region, and Gothenburg in Sweden, where Lee is based. But we also have an active R&D presence in around 40 countries across the globe. Let's go to the next slide. So business development activities are vital to the success of AstraZeneca, with many of our assets having been in-licensed and partnered both with companies and academics. So academic collaborations are, really highly important throughout our R&D process. So we collaborate with academic groups worldwide across all our therapy areas. So, for example, we fund a lot of collaborations, we enter into licensing agreements. We also do things like provide access to our compounds through our open innovation scheme. And there's a dedicated part of the AstraZeneca website on open innovation that I'd encourage you to take a look at. And there's a portal there for submitting collaboration opportunities. And like you, we're also very focused on publication. So, for example, there were 123 manuscripts published in high-impact journals just in the last 3 years, many of which were in collaboration with our academic colleagues. Next slide. So to focus on our key therapy areas in a little more detail. So oncology really is a key focus for AstraZeneca. We had a 26% growth in product sales in 2020. We have a diverse oncology portfolio, so focusing primarily on these particular tumor types, so lung, breast, blood, ovarian, pancreatic. We focus on 6 key mechanistic platforms in oncology. So immuno-oncology, DNA damage response. So as an example, our PARP inhibitor, olaparib, is an example here. Tumor drivers and resistance, so looking at the mutations that underpin the development of cancer and resistance mechanisms to those. Antibody drug conjugates, and newer areas for us as well are epigenetics and cell therapy. So these areas are actively growing. And in terms of our sort of areas of focus for academic collaborations, obviously we're looking to explore novel targets and pathways. A lot of our sort of preclinical collaborations, which is the area I particularly specialize in, are around access to models such as PDX models and organoids and access to tissues. We look at studies of disease evolution, heterogeneity and resistance. There's a key focus on early stage disease, so particularly looking at using the diagnostics that are increasingly becoming available to diagnose cancer early and how we can then treat cancers early, giving the best chance of survival. And obviously a separate part of the organisation, but working with academics on clinical trials as well. Next slide. So moving on to the biopharmaceuticals R&D, which is Lee's area. So in cardiovascular, renal metabolism, we're focused on 4 disease areas. So cardiovascular disease, heart failure, metabolic diseases such as NASH and type 2 diabetes, and renal diseases. In respiratory and immunology, our key focuses are COPD, which we're aiming to eliminate as a cause of death, major cause of death. Asthma, so for example, we have approved treatments such as Fasenra, Symbicort and Pulmicort, and the additional diseases listed here. Next slide. So to summarise, we know that our innovative science, and our effective medicines, where we cannot do it alone. So we therefore have more than 1,400 academic active collaborations across the globe, and many of these are with academic partners. Next slide. So finally, these are our contact details. We look forward to hearing from you and to collaborating with you. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Katie, and thank you, Lee. We do have a couple of minutes if anyone has any burning questions or if they would prefer to save it for the breakout room. No questions at this time? All right, let's keep moving on then. Up next, we've got Charlie Bateman from Saint-Gobain. And I'm very curious because I'm not familiar with this company at all. So take it away, Charlie.
Thanks, Terry. I suspected a couple of people might say that. So hello, good morning. I'm Charlie Bateman, and I handle the external relations for Saint-Gobain's North American Research Center. and we're located about an hour outside of Boston, Massachusetts. So like Terry said, Saint-Gobain is probably one of the world's largest industrial companies that you haven't heard of. We're a $40 billion company headquartered in Paris that designs, manufactures, and distributes materials and solutions for construction, mobility, healthcare markets, and numerous industrial sectors as well. So I was actually going to talk about the grand challenges that our ceramics businesses have identified until I saw the speaker list for today, and then thought it more appropriate to talk about our life sciences division. So of course, if anyone would like to talk about the grand challenges, I would be happy to do that at a later date, one-on-one. Like the AstraZeneca team, and I suspect a number of the colleagues later in the presentation, Saint-Gobain does not make pharmaceuticals or medical chemistry. We make a lot of the hardware that enables that. We enable manufacturers to make the stuff they do. So what I'm going to do this morning is briefly introduce the products in our life sciences business units that are closely related to medical and pharma markets, and then finish by listing the challenges and opportunities in the materials development of products in this space. So we can go to the next slide, please. So the bioprocess business unit produces fluid management solutions, including tubing, bags, filters, connectors, and manifolds for biopharma, cell and gene therapy applications. And the integration of these products are used to provide customer-specific single-use assemblies and systems. Next slide. So the medical components business manufactures molded silicone components, extruded tubings, and profiles in silicone, thermoplastic elastomers and fluoropolymers, and custom filtration solutions for medical device manufacturers for applications such as diabetes management, drug delivery, and catheters. And next slide. See, the fluid transfer business manufactures tubing, hoses, fittings, critical process vessels, filters, and heat shrink tubing covers for food, beverage, and industrial markets. So at this point, we're sort of drifting out of the medical pharma. And next slide. So there are two other businesses in our life sciences division that I'm not going to talk about. So this is the electronics and sealing solutions business units, because I figured the products are probably not so applicable for the audience here today. So what are the challenges and opportunities of making materials in these markets? Well, one of them we're always working on is improved control of the rates species diffused through critical fluid management materials. So if I've got a product on one side of that, I'm trying to grow something, I need gaseous species to diffuse through the wall. I need reactant species possibly to diffuse out, and it would be nice to have a much larger range of control mechanisms to control how things move in and out of these products. As the medical components are becoming miniaturized and getting smaller and smaller, dimensional control is becoming more and more important, and extraneous material is needing to be minimized at a greater and greater level. Of course, there are more demanding purity and leachability requirements as the chemistries required get more and more controlled and more precise. Improved adhesion, non-adhesion requirements. So obviously, people are looking for improved wettability, fluid flow. Perhaps we need adhesion to other materials components. And the last one I've listed here is minimizing the loss of flavor components in food and beverage applications. So I hope that's given you a quick overview of our life sciences division, the products the different businesses make, and the challenges and opportunities that we as a materials manufacturer face in these markets. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. So I actually have a couple of questions. So can you talk a little bit about yours and your company's experience in terms of working with academic institutions, considering the nature of the markets that you're addressing?
So we tend to be opportunistic in this. If there are professors, research groups that are working on materials or processes of specific interest, we'll chase that. But our business model is considerably different to that we just heard about with AstraZeneca.
Great. Can you talk a little bit, because you mentioned two categories that I'm personally both curious and have a selfish interest in. One is I saw there was one line item about smart agriculture, and we may have people in the audience that are probably, we do have institutions certainly in the US and elsewhere that have great agriculture innovations. I'm kind of curious how that fits in with your company.
So I think that's just an application of the industrial tubing. I don't know for sure, but I suspect that was related to hydroponics and future thinking growth of food sources rather than the traditional methods, but I'm not entirely certain, to be honest.
Okay, great. Any other questions? It's certainly a new space for me, so thank you, Charlie. Yes, and up next we will have Devin Swanson from Janssen Pharmaceuticals, I actually met Devin virtually. We're actually both co-located in San Diego, California, and he actually works with a former teammate of mine. So I was very happy to be able to invite Devin to participate today. Go ahead.
Thanks, Tari. Appreciate the invitation. So yeah, in the news this week, there was a company that was less than 20 years old and it achieved a valuation of over $1 trillion. So in contrast, I'm going to pitch a company that's been around for about over 130 years, really has been able to achieve single-digit growth consistently over that time frame to become one of the largest global healthcare companies in the world. So next slide, please. Okay, so Johnson & Johnson is headquartered in New Brunswick, New Jersey. This is right near the Rutgers campus on the East Coast. Very large company. We employ over 130,000 people worldwide, operate in 60 countries. I think what makes J&J a little bit different from some of the other large pharmaceutical companies is we operate in 3 business segments, which provides diversity and stability in changing economic times. So a lot of people know J&J in the consumer world. This is the Band-Aids, the baby products, the shampoos, skincare, Tylenol, Motrin, things of that nature. And that accounts for about 25% of the business. We also are big players in medical devices, things like orthopedics, spine. We're getting into a lot of the robotic surgeries and diagnostics as well. I personally sit on the pharmaceutical segment. I've been in the research and development side for the past 21 years. And that pharmaceutical segment has kind of come under one umbrella, known as Janssen as of late. And as a standalone company, Janssen is the 4th largest pharmaceutical company. Next slide, please. So Janssen was named after a very famous medicinal chemist, Paul Janssen. He was based in Belgium. He discovered a lot of well-known drugs that are still used today, including loperamide, risperidol, haloperidol, and many other anti-infectives as well. There's a lot of sites here. I just want to focus on just a couple. So our 3 main sites for Janssen is La Jolla, California, which is where I am based, Springhouse, Pennsylvania on the East Coast, and then Beers, Belgium in Europe. With that, we operate a lot of innovation centers and hotbed ecosystems. So one in San Francisco, one in Boston, one in London, one in Shanghai. Additionally, we operate about 13 to 14 J labs across many of these locations. These are, great incubator institutions. I highly encourage you to reach out to the J labs folks where you can do pitches and try to get feedback on your startup companies. Next slide, please. Okay, so Janssen operates in 6 therapeutic areas. My background is in immunology and neuroscience as a medicinal chemist. I've contributed to 6 clinical candidates, small molecule clinical candidates, a former chemistry team lead, and have recently transferred to an external innovation role looking at preclinical assets for Janssen. In the CVNM space, cardiovascular, we make Xarelto, which is a blood thinner factor 10A inhibitor, and it is a replacement for warfarin, which used to be the standard of care. We have a long legacy in biologics and immunology. So one of our TNF alpha products is called Remicade. It's been around for probably 20 years now. And our best-selling drug at Janssen is a drug called Stelara. It is an IL-23, IL-12 antibody for psoriasis and Crohn's. Janssen has a long legacy in infectious diseases and vaccines, looking at malaria, dengue, HIV in particular, and of course we have a very nice COVID story that's emerged within the past 2 years. I'm actually looking to get a booster shot as well with the recent ruling. So in neuroscience, Paul Janssen has a long legacy in neuroscience. This is focused on kind of traditional drugs like Risperdal, but also cutting edge drugs. Recently approved Spravato, which is an enantiomer of ketamine. Huge advancements in oncology in the past 10 years, and Janssen has certainly been a player there. Drugs like Cytiga and drugs like the BTK covalent inhibitor have really made great strides in blood cancers. And recently we purchased a company called Actelion, and that has got us into pulmonary hypertension space. Next slide, please. All right, this slide is really about Janssen trying to be the partner of choice for all the players shown here. We've positioned ourselves with innovation centers, with J Labs, and with collaborations across all these partners. And what I think about when I think about this, it's about not just what we take, it's about what we bring to the table. And in today's environment, that's really not about money. It's about capabilities, and that's where really Janssen really exceeds. Capabilities to identify that killer experiment, to move on that killer experiment and advance that into a commercially developed product. And there are many examples of this. I can speak quickly. Just one. There's a CAR T drug we partnered with Legend Biotech, which is now in phase 3, and is has basically a 98% response rate in multiple myeloma, and we expect to get approval of that later this year. Okay, so last slide. This is really just about my interests in Janssen and how I may interact with you guys. This is what I'm looking for in the preclinical R&D space. And with peptides, we're looking at peptides have made a huge comeback. We're looking at protein-protein interactions and delivery of peptides and how they can replace antibodies. I can talk forever on DNA encoded libraries. This is how you tag a small molecule and screen basically a million to millions of these compounds at once. And there's a big AI machine learning component to that as well. Targeted protein degradation. When I was a chemist, it was all about agonists and antagonists of receptors. Now we're degrading proteins or preventing degradation of those proteins. So very cool field there. And I don't need to spend too much time on mRNA with everything being in the news. I will say delivery technologies are key around these fields. And with that, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. I'm active on LinkedIn, and please reach out for any questions, and I'm happy to answer any questions. So thank you.
Thanks, Devin. We do have a question from the audience, and since it was posed right during your presentation, we'll have you start off. But I will ask the other speakers to also consider formulating the answer to this question, as they go through their presentations in the breakout. So, Devin, can you share with us any particular successful cases of collaborating with an academic institution, be it a large university or a research focused institution, right? We have a little bit of that mix. And I mean, if it's something that's not publicly disclosed, you don't need to name names, but maybe just kind of, a brief description of what it was like. Was it a license, collaboration, so on and so forth?
Yeah, I can speak to one that I'm, quite familiar with. We had a collaboration with the Princeton Catalyst Institute. So it's a 7-year collaboration. There's funding. Obviously, Dave McMillan recently won the Nobel Prize in chemistry. There's a lot of interaction with Princeton with him. Really, that is to advance academic chemistry interests in Janssen, and that has been a pretty high-profile collaboration. But we do that with a lot of other universities as well. throughout the East and West Coast. So that is an active area in terms of, I'm more familiar with the medicinal chemistry side of things there.
Sure. So Devin, like Charlie, do you tend to be more opportunistic in terms of, if there's a particular unmet need or desire to collaborate with a particular person, or do people from your team in external innovation? I understand that Janssen's structured a little bit differently from other companies, for instance, but or do you actively, outreach and scan the universe for technologies and opportunities?
Sure. Search and evaluation is obviously a huge component of my job and others. And it's about building relationships, and it's about people, but and hoping that keeping your eye on the technologies and things that are coming out of those relationships. And obviously there's a fine line between academic and startups these days. In addition, we're trying to get in as early as possible.
Well, JLabs is a great example of that, and certainly JLabs in San Diego has flourished a great deal. So let's see, any other questions? We'll keep them coming, and remember, you do have the breakout session as well. So we will go on. We have Candace Stubblefield from BD Biosciences. Welcome, Candace.
Hi, thank you. Good morning. Well, it's morning for me. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. My name is Candace Stubblefield, and I'm a licensing manager within the business development department of BD Biosciences. We're a division of Becton Dickinson and Company, or we like to call us BD for short. Next slide. So I wanted to provide a brief overview about our very large company. For those of you that may or may not be familiar with us, we are quite a large company, and so I thought this might be helpful. We are a very large, one of the top 10 medical technology companies in the world. We were established in 1897 with a focus on improving medical discovery, diagnostics, and the delivery of care. We have products that range over various segments of the medical field, from basic bench-side research to medication delivery and follow-up care in the clinic. Our company is divided into these three main segments. We have our life sciences division, which is responsible for our flow cytometers, our single-cell multiomics platforms, our reagents and assays, and our clinical diagnostic products. We have a medical division that's focused on our medication management and delivery systems. And we have an interventional segment that's focused on our interventional therapy devices and management with a focus on kidney and urology health. So BD Biosciences, we're part of the discovery part of the life sciences division. Next slide. And for BD Biosciences, our products can fit into the main categories of clinical and research instruments, reagents and assays, and our informatics and software platforms. So historically, BD has been focused, is deeply rooted in immunology. And upon that, we've built top-of-the-line flow cytometers for both research and clinical use. Reagents, various reagents and assays, including thousands of antibodies that are used with our flow cytometers and integration into clinical in vitro diagnostic products, and our robust informatics and software platforms that enable our high-performing flow cytometers. So currently, BD is undergoing this large expansion period. We're looking to add to our product portfolios. And that means we're looking to license more technologies. Next slide. So most of our, and to kind of back it up a little bit, most of our antibodies that we offer are licensed from academia. We have, like I mentioned, we have thousands of antibodies, and we're always looking to license more antibodies, specifically monoclonal antibodies, for use with our flow cytometry systems and our clinical in vitro diagnostic products. But we actively, and that's mostly what I do, is actively look for antibodies to license into our company. But we are also interested in looking at, looking for new reagents. And this is definitely not an exhaustive list. This is the shortest I can pretty much get into this time period. So for reagents, this would include reagents that stimulate cytokine and chemokine production, or reagents that enable CAR T cell therapies. We're looking for new assays that could study cell function, or that can detect and measure protein levels and the activity of those proteins within the cells. We're looking for new molecules and dyes, or fluorescent dyes for use with our flow cytometry systems. And, I have this category of platforms, but it's really kind of a catch-all. And this could include new technologies that improve the flow cytometry components and systems themselves. We're looking for new manufacturing process for antibody production or conjugation, and new technologies in single-cell multiomics. So this is more focused on the research space, but we do have a large emphasis on our clinical space. So we're looking for new technologies, clinical assays that could be used for diagnosis, prognosis, and or monitoring of patients. So I'm keeping these topics pretty broad because we're actually looking at everything that kind of comes our way, and to see if it fits in with our business and our and what we want to do moving forward. Next slide. So I also wanted to take the time to kind of talk about our existing relationships with academia. So we definitely have an active research grant funding program, and we always encourage investigators to apply. We have specific areas of interest, as I've shown here, but there's a more complete list you can find online at bd.com/funding request. We do a lot of collaborative research, and we are also looking for great researchers who would like to take part in pre-market evaluation opportunities or provide input on the antibodies that we may offer and develop. We are also kind of going into this new area where we're looking to partner with innovative companies. And specifically, these companies would be small companies that may have developed a clinical diagnostic test and need help with resources to obtain IVD or CE-IVD approval, or may need help commercializing. So we're looking at opportunities to partner with companies like that. And if you have any questions, as I say, I have a much more exhaustive list on the technologies we're looking for. So please email me, connect with us, and I look forward to connecting with you later.
Any questions for Candace? So I've actually worked with BD Biosciences in my academic tech transfer career, and built a pretty good relationship, mainly around out licensing and the evaluation of monoclonal antibodies that were developed by investigators at my previous institution. So we worked out a really nice process. So I can certainly testify to that. I'm sure many of my other colleagues have also had a relationship with you. In terms of this is a great way for outreach, but the research grants thing is a little bit new. And without clicking on the link, I mean, do you guys have like a particular scope, like an RFP type thing, saying like we're looking for something like this, or are you just saying like bring us your ideas and we'll sift through it and let you know if it's of interest? What's the approach here?
Pretty much. So our sponsored, I like to talk about this because not many people know about it, and not too many people know about it because it's not as robust as other companies in our funding program. So it's more kind of a reactionary response where we have this platform where researchers can just apply for funding, and then we have an internal review process where people will review the request, and if it aligns with our interests and strategies, then we'll fund it. A lot of our and then we have, it's kind of split into different categories. So we'll have this type of reactionary response, and then we have an active where we're looking to collaborate with specific investigators we have in mind that align with our, maybe new technologies. We're looking to collaborate on improvements to existing technologies, or something that we're looking to get into. So we kind of have two sides of this. So I just wanted to share the link so that everyone knows, and we can, but we do have specific areas of interest. Yes.
Fantastic. Great. Well, thank you, Candace. Oh, we got another question specifically for you. Let me pull that one up real quick. Okay, do you in-license oncology IVDs or LDTs for early detection, recurrence, etc.? And if so, can you provide past examples?
Yeah, so I think that's something we're looking to get more into. So historically, we have been immunology focused, but recently we've been pushing to increase our focus to more immuno-oncology or oncology kind of disease monitoring. And so those are technologies we would definitely like to learn about so that we can assess if we're going to be interested in those particular tests. But yes, that is part of the pitch here, is that we would like to see.
So it's in strategy, but it sounds like it's a fairly recent addition. So perhaps past examples are not quite so readily available. So I hope that answers the question so far. Great. Well, thank you again, Candace. Great presentation. Next up, we've got Bruce Bloom from HealX. I'm assuming that's how we pronounce the name of the company. But Bruce, welcome.
Thanks. Yes, Helix. Originally, the word is sort of heal, and then X stands for any rare disease. So our goal is at some point to be able to use our AI and machine learning tools to help find therapies for rare diseases. So if you want to go on to the next slide. We're all focused about rare diseases, and 95% of rare diseases don't have an effective therapy. Over half of the rare disease population is children. So we're a very mission-driven company. We started because our two founders, one of whom is a PhD biopharmacist, and the other is a pharmaceutical veteran who took Viagra from its failure as an angina medication to its success as a erectile dysfunction medication. But they had run into a number of individuals in the rare space who were repurposing drugs and looking for other kinds of things, and that led to the creation of Helix. So we've grown fairly rapidly over the last 7 years. We have over $70 million worth of funding, and we'll be raising some more money again soon. And we use AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning, plus human intelligence to basically try and combine all the knowledge that we have in our technology knowledge base around drugs and diseases to find non-obvious drugs that might be used as a starting point to create therapies that will work for rare diseases. So if you want to go on to the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about how we're structured. So we very much are connected to the patient voice from the beginning of picking diseases we want to work on all the way up through clinical and commercial. We have the patient involved in everything that we do. We're trying to accelerate the way that rare treatment therapies come to market by starting with drugs and human safe compounds that already could be used, and sort of streamlining some of the preclinical in vitro and in vivo data and moving things to clinical trial much more quickly. We have what we think is the largest and most comprehensive knowledge base of rare disease information in the world, and our world-class AI and machine learning technologists really know how to sort through that to create evidence chains that link diseases with drugs. And we have a very strong drug discovery expertise. So we're a full service sort of biopharma company. And we have, if you go on to the next slide, our own internal pipeline of many diseases. And you see we have several that should be in the clinic next year. But the reason that I'm talking to you today is that we are supplementing our internal pipeline with external opportunities. We are actually looking for opportunities in all of these diseases for the reason that in many of these rare diseases, they're multi-genetic, they're multi-symptomatic, and it's unlikely that small molecules, any single small molecule is likely to solve the problem completely. So many of these patients are already on multi-pharmacology. Many of those are just managing symptoms. We're trying to slow and change progression and actually do disease modification. So even if you see something on our clinical pipeline, it doesn't mean you shouldn't submit an idea if you have something else for this. We're mostly interested in small molecules, but we could also look at biologic and other kinds of things in these diseases. You see at the bottom, there's some undisclosed diseases. Until we actually complete the drug matching and know that we have some opportunities to move these forward, we don't want people in the community to get too excited about it. You also see that we're pretty open to almost anything. If I were to say one area that we have not yet really entered into, but might be open to, it's acute oncology, lymphomas, leukemias, and those kinds of things. As you can see on here, we do some oncology work in the sort of benign chronic oncology area like neurofibromatosis. If you want to go on to the next slide. So what are we looking for? Why am I here talking to you today? So we're looking at redevelopment assets. Other people call that drug repurposing for rare diseases that come from academic or industry partners. We want to make sure that either the drugs are approved for human use in one or more jurisdictions, or if they're deprioritized, shelved, or discontinued assets, that they're safe for human use. And the kinds of things that we're doing is licensing these preclinically proven assets that are ready for or close to the clinic, or optioning, co-funding assets that need additional preclinical development. We're close to finishing an option deal on a rare disease from a Midwestern institution. And the success of that was the PI is still at the institution, was really helpful in answering a lot of the due diligence questions that we had. I love to work with rare disease communities. I have a 20-year history of doing drug repurposing and redevelopment, and have helped bring over a dozen therapies to patients through the redevelopment space. And every one of those started at an academic institution where either a PhD or a MD PhD decided that there was something useful, or potentially a clinician that found something that worked in a patient that had comorbidities, and we were able to move those forward to patients. So now I'm doing this on the for-profit side. We're very eager to do this. Helix is headquartered in Cambridge, England. I and our head of BD are both in the US, and we're expanding here in the US. But we're happy to have conversations with you and receive information in almost any way. So I'll stop. I think there were a couple of questions, and we're running at the time limit. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Really, really eye-opening, and my company actually has a little bit of a side business in rare diseases. But there is one question that to pose to you in particular, which is, what is the mechanism to submit technologies and opportunities for consideration, and what's sort of the average review timeline, in your opinion?
If you go to the last slide, I didn't put up all of our contact information, so it's there. You can get in touch with me or Clara Tang. Anybody on the Helix team will get to us. We're happy to do it informally if you want to send us any non-confidential information you have, and we'll take a look at it. And if it looks interesting, we'll sign a CDA and move it further. I would say if we're going to say no, we say no fairly quickly within a month. If we're going to say yes, it can take, depends on the process, but it can take anywhere from a couple of months to a year, depending on the academic institution.
Another question is, how rare is too rare of a disease for Helix? 1 in 50,000, 1 in 100,000, less than that? Is there, do you have a cutoff?
Well, certainly 1 in 100,000 makes it easy to have a commercial case for it. Less than that, it depends on whether we can combine it with any other diseases or if we're first to market. But if you have a rare and ultra rare disease, we're sort of interested in it. Sometimes the compound you're working with we can see how it might work in other diseases, so we could expand that. We're happy to hear about anything. We're a small team, so it's easy for us to review these things. And I'm happy to answer more questions and talk about this in the breakout too, because I see there are a couple of other things.
Sure. Yeah, Bruce, definitely take a look in the chat and feel free to answer the questions in the chat. Again, thank you so much. Great presentation, and I'm looking forward to talking to you more. So we're going to wrap up the speaker section with John Wilson from GlaxoSmithKline. Welcome, John.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is John Wilson. I'm the Director of Academic Liaison within the United States. We have a global team across the company. There's 9 of us, and this is our primary responsibility. I apologize for the video not showing up, not sure what's going on. However, we work for a global company. Obviously, everyone, we have a major R&D hub in the US, which is in Upper Providence, which is about an hour outside Philadelphia. Our vaccines hub is between Belgium and Rockville, Maryland. And then we also have our UK presence, which is GlaxoSmithKline Limited R&D, which is our parent UK partner. In addition to that, there's a number of affiliates, et cetera. I'm not going to go into the full numbers. There's about 96,000 employees right now across GlaxoSmithKline. That does not include some of our smaller affiliates, so we don't really get into those numbers. So ultimately, what's my role and how does GSK partner with academics? We run the gamut. Obviously, you can see the areas of interest, and we can focus on that and talk to you about that. But ultimately, GSK's role is to find out a better way to partner with you and be your partner of choice in collaborations. That being said, we work from early discovery, so platform technologies, development of chemistry, going through any kind of chemistry setup, and that includes small molecule, vaccine, consumer health, across the organization. Now, a lot of people, I'm sure, has held that GSK is splitting. We will be consumer health as well as pharma R&D, which would also include our vaccines group, oncology, et cetera. The group that I sit within, academic liaisons, we cover the entire organization. So there is nothing that crosses, the 9 of us desks that we say, okay, we have one group that does this here and one group that does it in the UK or in third world, or however we set ourselves up. So ultimately, if you have an idea and you see a GSK scientist on a poster presentation or a paper, there are drivers. So we have a lot of work that comes into us where scientists have been in a meeting, they come in, they say, hey, I talked to someone at this academic institution or this nonprofit or this startup even, and we would like to pose, does it work? Now, their responsibility is to make sure they can support budget, and they might not have a budget. So it might be a material transfer. Hey, listen, we found you have an antibody. Obviously, a lot of people look for our tool compounds because of IP considerations, et cetera. And we try to make it a win-win agreement across the entire organization. We want the academic partner to feel they're getting publication, to feel they're getting notoriety to working in the area of science. GSK is gap filling in regards to, we understand that a majority of the cutting edge science and technologies that are coming out into the industry now are not being driven within the major pharmaceutical companies. So we understand that we have the science we can develop, we have tools that may not be available at academics, but I can't say that the algorithm science that is coming out of PhD and fellows within the academic centers sit within GSK or sit within any major pharmaceutical companies for that matter as it develops. So that's what we're trying to harness, and that's what we try to leverage. We leverage what GSK can bring to the table, what the academic partner can come to the table with, and how do we make it a win-win situation. Now, as I said earlier, that can be from fellowship development. If you have a PharmD program, for example, and you want pharmacists to come into more of an industry setting to say, hey, do I want to sit on a clinical development team and learn how to develop, and deliver drugs for pediatric oncology? We have systems like that, and we set up agreements in that area. And on the other end of the spectrum, I'm sure some people were aware, about 1.5 years ago, we got rid of something called the Discovery Partnership and Academic Collaborations, where we would work with scientists within institutions, universities, et cetera, to develop drugs. And I mean full development from bench to patient. And our involvement would be as much as the academic want to be involved with. So that's pretty much the gamut of what we do. If you have an idea, let a scientist at GSK know, let myself know. We sit in parallel with our BD group, so we work very closely with them. If you have something available and you want to present it to us, know what you want to do with it. Know what your scientists want to do with it. Do they want to box it up and get rid of it? Do they want to do research? Is there a development of science there? We'll find a way to make it work. We're sort of the gray space experts within GSK, and we work with the academic partners very closely. Our group handles about 1,000 agreements every year. And as I said, those are across, research collaborations, data transfer agreements, material transfer agreements, fellowships, studentships, which are very popular in the UK, as a lot of people know, and more of a training protocol. But we also do licensing. We'll do collaborations. We'll do strategic alliances. It's really to say, if you are aligned with GSK interests and there is budget and we have a great working relationship and we can make it work, we will. And as I said, our top areas, we're sort of disease agnostic in that way, but immunology, oncology, respiratory, human genetics, and machine learning are probably our biggest hitters. Including that would be within our consumer healthcare, but also our vaccines. Vaccine groups would come into that. We don't see a lot of those being early development style work. A lot of those are larger licensing agreements. So our business development group and ourselves would work together. So we don't really split that apart. In regards to what we want to see a page. If you make a presentation to GSK on an idea of what you want to do, if you collaborate. And I've had scientists come back from, ASCO meetings and saying, hey, I have 3 people I want to talk to. Can we work with them? Sure. And we'll figure it out. So ultimately, my contact details are there. And please let me know if you have any questions. I know I'll be in the breakout session. I also will be at the autumn annual meeting. Please set up time and I'm happy to work with anyone.
Thank you, John. And you make some really, really good points. I mean, certainly for our audience, which are primarily the academic tech transfer and licensing officers, having you as a point of contact for being able to share, opportunities, both, things that are in their portfolio, but also researchers that are interested in collaborating is key, right? I mean, when I was on the tech transfer side, I did not spend a lot of time in scientific conferences, but more in business, in business type conventions, et cetera, right?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, the earlier you can bring on someone that sits within the business development and or the academic director, TTO office to talk to them. I mean, scientists want to talk about science, which is excellent. What they don't think about is the tag along effects of intellectual property, arising IP, and what can we do and not do with it. So the earlier we can talk to people, the better off we are. And as I said, if it's something that's in licensing or it falls into our BD, I pass it on to the appropriate person, make the introduction. And usually they respond pretty quickly. I mean, that's all qualitative, right? What we consider quickly.
Yeah, exactly. Any questions for John? All right. Well, this concludes the speaker portion, and we're going to head out into the breakout rooms where I'm sure most of you are saving up your questions for that. So again, thank you to all the speakers and for your excellent slide decks. Very informative and really well done. Okay, great. I think we're all back. Welcome back, everyone. I hope the other breakout room had as lively a conversation as we did. So I thank everybody for their time, presenters and attendees as well. And we will hopefully be able to continue to hold sessions like this. I think even as the world opens up even more, to have this virtual setting is a great way to connect people from all areas of the world. I mean, we had Puerto Rico, Okinawa, etc. I mean, I'm absolutely thrilled. So, as Colleen and I had mentioned before, that the slide decks will be posted on the Connect and Collaborate page. Maybe not today, but soon thereafter. So you'll have a point of reference to come back, and you're certainly welcome to contact any of us. I think you all know how to contact Autumn as well if you need to connect with anyone. So we hope that you will all come back. And then to the presenters, we hope that we'll see you at another Autumn event. And then keep in mind the annual meeting is this February, and we've already opened up registration.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone, and all the best. I hope you have a great early weekend, and thank you again for all the speakers.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
All right.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Right.